Thank you. Tony.
Thank you. And firstly, thank you for the report, Councillor Matthews. It's just a pity the residents who came to represent the residents for the Woolston Hub were not here to listen to this report. And if by some fortuitous chance this report would have been first on the agenda, it would have given some context to why we face what we face and the decisions we need to take sometimes. And it's laid out in this report the challenges we face in Warrington regarding the shortfall. So again, as I say, this is a valuable piece of information, and I would advise, if it is being watched, that people look at this report, and it gives you further evidence about the financial situation Warrington finds itself in. Thank you.
Sue?
Unfortunately, Tony, I don't think that would have made a difference, because you can tell from the passion. The passion's about the Woolston Hub. It's not about our finances. It's immaterial. I know we need the finances to do the hub, but they're leaving that bit to us.
Right, Councillor Matthews.
Just a comment. I agree with Sue's points. It is for us to manage our own finances as a council and as an authority. I've highlighted some of the reasons behind the financial position we find ourselves in, that other councils find themselves in very similar situations. That isn't to apportion blame. It is for us to find solutions to the financial challenges that are presented to us. It is very relevant, obviously, to the members of the community that have come tonight to put their views forward about Woolston Hub, and it's for us to be able to explain the financial position that our council finds itself in. But again, it's about finding solutions to the situation and moving forward positively, and for us to be able to explain that and to stand by it. On that basis, Chair, I'm happy to move the report, as I've stated before.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Sorry? I'll let you come in a minute, Jess. It'll be remiss not to mention the fact is that we are where we are today, but we need to understand why we got where we are. I think we've got to look back at 14 years of cut after cut after cut after cut, and the depletion of public services and the ability to serve the public has been reduced for over a decade. And I think that then we have to, it's in a situation where we have to do the best with what we've got today. I'm going to let Tesh come in.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've mentioned this before in previous meetings about how our council tax level compares with our neighbouring local authorities. And on page 55 of the report, it's got how our council tax compares with our statistical neighbours. Cheshire West is in there as well. And Cheshire West and Warrington and Cheshire East used to be part of one county council many years ago. And when we split away from the two Cheshires, we kept our council tax, in hindsight, probably artificially low compared to the other two Cheshires. And if we hadn't have done that and maintained that level, then we would be in a very different financial position than what we are in today. But even with the exceptional funding coming up, it feels like, without the full table of all the neighbouring authorities, but my recollection is even with that exceptional funding, we'll still be in line with many of the other local authorities in the area, as opposed to being one of the lowest levels of council tax. I think it's important to put that into context for Warrington residents, because residents often will say to me, "Oh, Warrington's roads are really rubbish." And I'll say to them, "Have you seen some of the other roads in some of the other neighbouring local authorities which have got?" I mean, we're lucky because we're a relatively small urban local authority, really. Some of the other local authorities have a much bigger geographic area and have to spread their resources much thinner, and their roads aren't anywhere near as pothole free as ours. But residents, it's hard, isn't it? You only know what you see, and if you don't go outside of the borough, you don't realise just how good our schools are. You don't realise how good our community facilities are. And unless you look at a table of what council tax we're paying in Warrington compared to other areas, you're never really going to realise, actually, have we actually been undercharging council tax all these years, but still over-delivering for the income that we've been getting? And it's kind of come back to, I'm not saying come back to haunt us, but it's meant we haven't made those difficult decisions that other local authorities made many years ago in terms of closing down so many of their community centres, libraries and things. And we're now catching up with that to come to a hopefully sustainable, balanced budget.
I think you're quite right. I do recall the decision when the Cheshires and Warrington split. I think at that time, Warrington Council froze its council tax and continued the following year with the same figures, where the two Cheshires increased theirs by around about £100 each. So sort of we delivered for our citizens the best we possibly could. And we are a high-performing, low-funded council, and always have been ever since them days and before them days. So we do perform higher than the funding we get and deliver quality services again. And a lot of, apart from other towns, the grass always looks greener the other side of the horizon. And I think in reality, Warrington's a very desirable place to people who want to come and live, they want to come and stay, they want to build their futures and their families here. I think there's a reason for that. And I think it's a reason for, it's a low-funded, high-performing council, so we deliver good services with the very limited funding we get. Dennis?
Thank you, Chair. And just to conclude that, this is the first step on a budget process that will ultimately conclude, I believe, on the 2nd of March, because the full council meeting has been moved back. Within the report, the different steps are flagged for members and for members of the public. There will be an awful lot of opportunity for people to feed in their views. Ultimately, it is for us to ensure that our finances are sound, because every service that our council provides is based upon that. And why I take Councillor Patel's point completely, it is still for us to live within our means and the funding that is available to us, and to deliver best value and strong public services. But ultimately, every service is funded by council taxpayers or by general taxation. If that fund has come from the government, it's for us to make sure that we do the very best job available for our residents. And again, moving the recommendations of the report, I'm happy to move them as they are stated, sir.
Comments and questions? Nathan?
I think I just wanted to pick up on what Councillor Matthews mentioned in terms of where we spend our money and what we spend our money on. And if you look at the report, you'll see that under the adults category for our forecast for this year, we're looking at £96,272,000. Our council budget we set earlier this year was only 214 million. That, I think, for residents at home, it just goes to show what an enormous cost adult social care is for us as a local authority. And adding onto that as well, you've got 55 million pounds for children's, and then that doesn't even include education and early help, which is 10,404,000. Or the money we spend through the Better Care Fund at £22 million. I think those sorts of figures really hammer home what the local authority, what Warrington Borough Council is spending our money on. And once we've taken away all of those things, the rest of the money that we have available to us is what we're able to spend on things that what we desire, and things like leisure centres and things like collecting the bins and repairing the roads. And it really goes to show the sorts of challenges that we've got in terms of looking after some of our most vulnerable people as well in the town.
Maureen?
Thank you. Absolutely agree with everything that's been said. And I suppose what's changed in adult social care is we're seeing more and more younger people requiring our services, and sometimes with very complex needs. And they need to be supported for the rest of their lives. So they come into our system requiring a lot of support, costing a lot of money, and they need our support. But they will be with us under our council finances for the rest of their lives. So these are the pressures that we are under, and this explains, a lot of that explains why our finances are under such pressure. You know, the good news for people is that you know, some of these young people may not have survived childhood in the past, and we want them to have a quality of life as best they can. They are surviving into adulthood, and we can see that within our pressures. So we are doing everything we can to look at all the cost pressures and what we can change. And so there will be changes, but we are working very hard to keep those costs under control. But our focus is always to make sure we are supporting the people who need it most.
Thank you, Chair. I take both points that my fellow councillors have raised. Good public services cost money. And I think the difficulty for residents to grasp in some instances is that over 70 pence of every pound we spend goes on services that maybe touch 5% of our population. They are essential, and the vast majority of those will be statutory services that councils are expected to deliver, unitary authorities like ourselves. The projections for those numbers is to increase, which means as we go forward, more of our spending will go on those statutory services, which presses things that are important to our residents. And they, you know, as we've had very clearly made today, they are our leisure facilities, they may be bin collections, they are things, potholes, the state of roads and pavements, but they have increasingly over the last decade taken up a smaller proportion of the council's overall spend. Regardless, it is for us to ensure that we deliver adequate, reasonable public services that our residents expect, and do so within the budget that we've got available to us. The reports that we've gone through tonight make that crystal clear, and it's for us to be able to explain that to our residents as to where every penny and pound of public money is being spent. And on that basis, Chair, I'm happy to move the report with the recommendation stated.
Well, the report's been moved and the last comments have been sent by Nathan. Just wanted to make the last comment on it. Is the fact is to reiterate again and again, over a decade of cuts to public services, and this is the sort of situation that sort of lands on our table, is Warrington to do the best it possibly can within the financial envelope it has to deliver services for people, and we'll ensure and endeavour that we get the best services we possibly can within the funds that we've got available. So thank you for that, Dennis and Nathan. So it's been moved and seconded. Any questions, comments? Nathan?
I think just a brief comment really about how we are looking at what we've agreed to spend in the past and reviewing that and stopping some decisions, and we are being more financially prudent, and we are taking not tough decisions across the board. Yeah, I think that's everything.
That's exactly what the report's saying, is that we're reviewing everything that we plan to spend, and then really, in layman terms, going back to saying, do we actually need to do these? If they've been not committed, can we actually not use that capital at that purposes to make sure we have as much funds available as we possibly can to look at the deficit that we're facing?